Alright, so this is kind of a spin-off. Welcome back to a YouTube follower in my comment section gave us a lengthy story.
Okay.
So the story for him was he had a mechanic that he was going to, and none of the services that he was paying for seemed to fix the car or didn't hold up. I don't know the vehicle. I don't know the mileage. I don't know if the guy is a newspaper delivery guy or a pizza delivery guy, and an Uber or a Lyft driver. So those factors in how you're repairing a vehicle have everything to do with what you're trying to do to keep the car on the road, right? I mean, we just did a video on the Jeep that was on its possible fourth motor mount job. Well, it isn't because I don't know what I'm doing, right? Or maybe the previous mechanic doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm not the regular mechanic on that job, and it was a hefty bill. That his last mechanic put motor mounts in it, and the customer wasn't sure if they were aftermarket or not. What now?
I don't have my things.
I mean, if there's a place up here, we'll stop, but if there's not, so Google it. It sometimes does not matter what part you put in a customer's car. That part could be bad right out of the box, made improperly right out of the box, and may just last enough for the customer to go home and start the car up the next day and fail. But if you're an aggressive driver, this motor mount scenario is you're an aggressive driver with a high power vehicle. If the OEM motor mounts broke, aftermarket motor mounts broke, and I'm going to say I put OEM brake from the dealer in there again. If they break, there's not much I can do about that. And I've been told that I'm a pretty good mechanic, technician, so I've been told. But every good and great mechanic, and there's plenty of them out there, have issues. Ford Boss Me, Ford Mocha Loco, South Main Auto, even myself. Sometimes it is just out of our control to have a problem. Now, I'm just going to give you a scenario. So this guy talked about motor mounts, a coolant leak, a couple other things. It is very unlikely that a good or great mechanic who's fixing multiple failed systems, right? We'll just say 5 or 6 failed systems, that he cannot fix all those systems. If he cannot fix those failed systems, I would say usually your mechanic is the problem for one reason or another. Now, there are cars out there that sometimes cannot be fixed, and there's a lot of them sitting in new car dealer lots right now that the engineers just can't fix. And there's some shops out there that just can't fix certain things. Cannot. Be it parts, be it availability, be it technology, be it as it is. But if you come in for, we'll just do something simple, right? A coolant leak, and it's only coming from one spot, and we're just going to say it's a hose, and he cannot fix that hose, and you've been back multiple times for that same leak, he's the problem. That's just my opinion. Cut and dry. But it's not very likely that a good mechanic who fixed multiple systems has a problem with every system he fixed unless he's really not a good mechanic. And that could be many reasons why. It's parts, focus, knowledge, on and on and on. But even the best of us out here have issues. And that's just the way it goes. And does that warrant you to move on from a mechanic? I would say this. I do a lot of recondition work for people's cars. And it's usually multiple systems we're working on. And we usually get it all right the first time. Usually. Now, I said this before. When EVAP problems, we absolutely refuse to use aftermarket parts for EVAP problems, because all I do is chase my tail. Now, we're getting customers' cars in that in some cases I can identify an aftermarket part, and then sometimes I cannot because there's clones out there. So I don't really know, but if I say that I see this stuff, it's an instant. You're going to need the diagnostic. You're going to need a new gas cap. if I see a dormant purge valve or something like that, all that crap's coming off because I'm not even entertaining trying to say that that is good. And it could test good today and then test bad tomorrow, which it happens with OEM too. So yeah, so even good mechanics. And that's pretty much, I would say, probably why Ford Moco Loco, the Master Tech that we watch, does nothing but OEM parts. And if it's not available, it's not available. I'm sure he's not going to go in aftermarket because he already knows. He's just chasing his tail. He already knows that it's tough enough using OEM parts to keep cars fixed. So when I do suspension work, and I see this, aftermarket suspension parts, they seem like they don't last at all. You can grease them. You may not see the customer for 2 years or 3 years. They're back for an oil change or a noise, and then you put the car up in the air, and nothing that you put in this car with a grease fitting has fresh grease in it. Well, you know it's been out for a few years. It's been in for service, but no one's greasing the fittings. So now you're in the point, it's like, do I just eat this job and do it over? Or you say, hey, maintenance is on you. But if I have a suspension part, which happens all the time, sealed sway bar links constantly, sealed ball joints constantly, if it's within a year, and I feel bad for the customer, but all I can do is put on what's available to me. Or go OEM, and then, a control arm from the dealer, is $1,000 versus aftermarket for $100 or $200 or whatever it is. Plus, I got to be profitable on that, and then I got to install it and then cover it. So even though I put new parts on the customer's car, I do see that customer back with an issue a year later or sooner, depending on what the mileage is, and I have to make a decision on, did the installer install the part wrong? Is it loose, or is it just a bad part? And most of the time it's just a bad part again, and it sucks. But this is what we're dealing with out here in the aftermarket. So not every mechanic out here doesn't know what they're doing, and sometimes there's some stubborn jobs out there.
Make a left of volley.
That even the best mechanics in the world, and to me, sometimes I just can't trust any parts that we're buying, to be honest with you, and that's OEM or not. I mean, you have brand new cars that can't make it off the showroom floor and on the street for a few thousand miles without blowing an engine or blowing a turbo or something stopped working. It's just what we're dealing with today. But what he was saying is that he didn't even know if this guy was replacing the parts that he was there for. And you have to know, like, if you just took your car in for a coolant leak and then a couple days later you're still seeing fresh coolant on the ground, something's wrong. Or he put motor mounts in, my car's not thumping right now, and then 3 months later the motor mounts are broke. Well, he didn't break them, and chances are it may or may not be from his installation, or it could be. I really don't know. But sometimes you have to move on to another mechanic. I had a really good customer of mine with a high mileage Dodge Ram 1500. I've done a bunch of videos on it. And he had new tires put on at Pep Boys, Michelin's. They balanced them. He still had a vibration coming from the steering wheel. I don't know what the extent of it was. They balanced them again. He still had an issue. They took the vehicle to the dealership, Dodge dealership.
Yay!
The Dodge dealership. The Dodge dealership balanced those tires with their dealership tire balancer. Gave the customer the car back, said they're balanced to spec. Still had a shake in the car. They never brought to his attention that you have 180,000 mile rear shocks, that the front differential input shafts had excessive play, the drive shafts in the front had excessive play. So as I'm getting into the car, I'm like, I need to have good parts on this car before I just keep moseying on with things. So I balanced the tires on my machine. They balanced with wheel weights additionally after the dealer. We did the diff, the axles, and to me it just seemed like it was like a turbulent kind of vibration, and it wasn't. You can't feel it in the steering wheel. It was in the back of the car. And I've rotated these tires and balanced them, and these were new Michelin's. So I noticed the bed was waving in the back at the same time the vibration was coming on. I'm like, I'm wondering if the turbulence of that is causing this sensation, this feel. And it wasn't horrible. You could definitely feel and hear that. So if I rolled it up, it lessened it. And I was like, oh, it's got to be coming from here. You know, we replaced a lot of the 180,000 mile worn out parts, and the truck's in good shape. So he was in yesterday telling me that he was talking to a guy at a tire shop about this weird thing going on in his car, and tell him the story. And he's like, you know, Anthony's a really good mechanic. He's fixed problems that we couldn't fix, and we replaced a lot of worn out parts. And he was involved in the whole procedure on how we're, you know, eliminating what is going on with this car. And then he said to me, he's like, yeah, I read online about the shake, you know, the front diff and all that stuff. So I did a video and showed him, yeah, yours definitely has play in it. I've let you know this for a year or two now. You know, it needs to be done. Excuse me. But the moral to the story is, he talked to a guy who owns a tire shop, and he said those Michelin tires on these Dodge Rams are a nightmare. He said, and we have a special wheel balancer or balancing procedure, road force wheel balancing, which we're not super duper in the tire business. And I will tell you, I have literally, how many people ever complained about our tire balancing? Never. No. I balance my race car tires, my personal tires, hundreds of used car dealer tires. And the time that we do, it's because a wheel weight has fell off for one reason or another, and it's a simple rebalance, which happens. We use stick-ons, and we're not sticking them on with brand new wheels. We're sticking them on with crappy, dirty, greasy wheels, and I'm not detailing someone's inner barrel for a $10 wheel balance. So anyway, the story was, it was the Michelin tires that was causing the problem. So Pep Boys does hundreds, if not thousands, of tires, and they have decent tire equipment. The dealerships usually have the best tire equipment for their vehicles, right? So a dealer technician balances the tires. I'm no dummy. I balance the tires. We don't usually have balancing issues. And it turned out that these Michelins, for some friggin' reason or another, was causing a weird vibration in the back of his truck. And it wasn't obnoxious and obvious, but enough to annoy him to the point where he didn't want the truck anymore. I'm like, this truck is like brand new. We've been taking care of this thing. You've been taking care of it. Why would you go waste your money on a $60,000 pile of crap Dodge Ram truck when this truck will last 10 times longer than new Dodge products? Which is true. They're garbage. Anything new today is garbage, in my opinion. But talking to the tire guy, he invited him to the shop, and they did the tire balancing on their Road Force tire balancer. And now I don't know if he was blowing smoke up his ass or not, but he said it took a few hours to get these tires right. So I don't know what that procedure is. I didn't look into it more. But he said it's the Michelin tires that caused the problem. Well, I would have just said, take this shit off my car and give me some Goodyears that it was backed with originally, because I didn't have these problems. Right. So I'm not really sure what it was, and I don't usually see that. I've seen that in cheaper product line tires, where I just couldn't get them balanced, and then we shifted them to another tire brand, but it showed up in the steering wheel shaking. It never showed up as a weird vibration in the vehicle. In the back, nothing in the front, in the back. Straight? Yeah. Oh, I have to pee. This is the ghetto.
Right here.
But yeah,
it's
I mean,
it's right here.
Even great mechanics.
Oh, what the fuck is this place?
It's a gun shop.
It says Sporting Goods. It was the only one that was closed.
I can't believe you're really making me stop to get you this shit right now, but do I have to go in with you?
No, because I'll just look.
So even the best mechanics, you guys should be patient with. And sometimes I get tortured with cars. You fix an evap leak today on an older car, and a few months later they're back with an evap leak from a small corrosion hole or a rodent. It just happens, people. But if they're screwing up everything they fixed, it's time for you to move on. Sorry to bend your ear for so long. I hope someone was entertained by this. Thanks for watching.